Never Caught, The Washingtons' Relentless Pursuit of Their Runaway Slave, Ona Judge, by Erica Armstrong Dunbar, tells the story of a young slave woman belonging to our nation's first president, George Washington, and his wife, Martha Washington. Never Caught examines slavery through the lens of one who lived it and escaped it. We follow Ona Judge through her childhood at Mount Vernon and into her young adulthood, serving the new president and his wife at their homes, first in New York and then Philadelphia. During her sojourn in these northern cities, Ona Judge meets people in the free black community and begins to see the possibilities that exist for those who are in control of their own destiny. Judge takes her life into her own hands and chooses freedom. With assistance from those in the free black community of Philadelphia, she departs the first family and strikes out on her own. She heads to New Hampshire. On the one hand, she's entered into a life of backbreaking labor and hardship, but on the other hand, she's gained freedom and the ability to marry and have children. George and Martha Washington are unwilling to let Ona go and spend considerable time and expense attempting to have her returned to them. Ona experiences several close calls, both during and after Washington's presidency, and it is not until the death of George in 1799 and Martha in 1802 that she's able to feel even a small amount of relief from the fear of capture. The book then examines Ona Judge Staines' later years. She suffers the loss of her husband and her children, and lives in extreme poverty, and yet she soldiers on, choosing to finally share her story towards the end of her long life. With Never Caught, Dunbar shows United States history from another point of view. She tells the story of slavery from the point of view of the enslaved. Dunbar shows us that while men such as George Washington fought for freedom, it was only for the freedom of white men. Meanwhile, African Americans were left to the mercy of their masters, and the few who managed freedom, either through escape or other means, were faced with poverty and the threat of recapture for the rest of their lives. The author of Never Caught, Erica Armstrong Dunbar, uses several primary sources, many of them from newspapers of the time. They include marriage announcements, advertisements for runaway slaves, and interviews with Judge. Dunbar also includes excerpts from letters between Washington and Thomas Whipple, a customs officer engaged to help return Judge to the Washingtons. These primary sources all serve to illustrate and support the story of Ona Judge. There are a few of these sources that I would like to highlight. The first is the list of slaves kept at Mount Vernon in 1799. The next are newspaper articles included at the end of the book that first tell the story of Ona Judge. 1. From the Granite Freeman of Concord, New Hampshire, published on May 22, 1845. The next is from The Liberator, printed January 1st, 1847. Never Caught does more than just tell the story of one woman. It opens our eyes to the cruel treatment suffered by the enslaved at the hands of some of our most esteemed historical figures. Through the eyes of Ona Judge, we are able to see that George and Martha Washington were not always the benevolent and kind founding family that history has presented to us. Never Caught reminds us that history is complicated, and we must never forget to examine the past from all points of view.